opportunity. I appreciate being here. Everybody here is intending to be on this whole how to take my career to the next step, right? Just want to make sure we're on the same page. Anybody like, I don't really want to be here, I got stuck. Like, now would be a good time to raise your hand. And check out, I won't be offended, it's fine, it's cool. I just want to make sure that we're here. But as you said, I'm Alex Merritt, the creator of the ALM Development Institute, where we're on a mission to help organizations and professionals, through transformational development opportunities. And so that, we can talk about how that looks a little later, but that's not what we're here for as we get started. And so, for today's session, and I should warn you guys, for those of you that don't know me, I speak incredibly fast. If you are not following or tracking along with me, listen faster. Okay? Or just, again, give me the air break in the middle of the air. I will slow it down, because once I get on a roll, I'm like out to the race. You're like, where are we going? So just be okay to interrupt there. But want to make sure that you walk out of here with the ability to, understand and help yourself define, this strategy, kind of for your next step is really what the idea is here. Understand what resources are needed, and then what are the key factors to kind of get to the next level, because it feels like that's a buzzword. Everybody, wants to get to the next level. We talk about the next level, but what exactly does that mean? And then last but not least, have fun, or at least pretend to. And so this will be, I will talk to you, you talk back to me. Like I said, we got a small enough audience. When I say small enough, all 100 of y'all in here know that we can engage. So if you got a question, feel free to stop me, and then we'll be able to dive into it. But any questions before I get started? Does it feel like what you came for? That's a bigger question. I always want to make sure I check in. I was like, is this what you came to expect to get? Don't have me up here like, that's not what I wanted to know. But if it's not, feel free to dive in. And so, when we get started just in general, what is strategy? What is it? Throw out some ideas. What is strategy? This is that part where I talked about, I was going to talk to you, you were going to talk to me. This is your turn.
Comprehensive plan.
Huh?
Comprehensive plan.
It's a comprehensive plan. What else? What is a strategy? It's a battle plan. She said battle, where you work? No. So strategy is a careful plan. So our friends at Webster says it's a careful plan or method that is designed to help us to kind of achieve a particular goal, usually over a long period of time. And I highlighted some words that I think are really important as we talk about developing a strategy for anything, particularly as you talk about your career and your next level, is one, this idea of careful, being really clear about what kind of plan we're putting in place. And my favorite part of this is actually long periods. Sometimes we don't understand the time frame. So everybody, who all wants to get to the next step? Everybody. Who wants to get there like now? Exactly, right? The other half are like, I hadn't thought about it, right? And so in your head, you have a definition of the time frame that you are looking to get to this next step. And you need to make sure you're clear and you understand what that period of time is, because if not, sometimes the disappointment is not because you're not going to be able to get to the next step. It's because you have a disconnect between how long it should take you and how long the organization thinks it should take you to get to the next step. I remember I met a gentleman, I don't know if there's any Cargill employees, but he was a Cargill employee. I was on a flight from Thailand coming back, and because you got a long flight, we start talking, and he says, can you give me some insight? I'm thinking about leaving Cargill. And Cargill, you can write me a check for this later because I helped save you an employee. But he says, because, I'm not feeling like I'm passionate, I'm not doing, I don't know if I'm adding value, and I feel like I can be doing something else now, and as, ALM Development Institute, we spend time, understanding and helping do millennial leadership development, so I knew to inquire a little more. I was like, how long have you been there? He said, 10 months. I was like, you just figured out where the bathrooms were. What you mean you're not adding value? You just figured out how to get to your desk 2 ways. And so as we start to talk, but as I inquired a little more, what it really turned into is he was unclear about where he was going in the organization. He wasn't clear about what the opportunity was for him, and because he was unclear, he was ready to quit. And so I was able to give him some insight that convinced him to stay for at least another year with the company before he jumped ship, and to help him understand how if you leave right now, because you can, by the way, you can always do whatever you want to do as you think about your next step in your strategies, but I helped him understand how his plan was not going to help him get the outcome that he was looking for, right? Because coming up with a plan is actually not difficult. Coming up with a plan that delivers against the goal you have set in mind is really important. And so this long period and understand timing, I think, is really, really important as we talk about strategies. As you think about getting to the next step in your organization, it is very straightforward. You've probably heard something similar about this before, but it's this idea of what do you want? And it seems like, well, of course, right? I know what I want. Most people don't know what they want. And so being able to decide, again, is it, and I think the lady before me just, hit it really well, is, do I want a position? Is that what I want? I want to be the vice president of something or another. Do I want to be in the South? I want to just move, and that's the next step for me. Being clear and being able to define what that is for you. And the reason why it's important for you to be able to define it is because you will eventually have to disclose it. And there is nothing worse than somebody asking, what do you want? And you're like, I'd like to be promoted. To what? And does it matter where I promote you to? Because we got this really cool spot in the middle of nowhere, America. And we'd like for you to go there with us. Is that what you want? And so as you decide what it is that you desire, and you define it and understand what's important to you, it makes it easier for you to quickly disclose that, because you want to be able to share. And this is, again, fundamental when we talk about how do you get to your next step. After you've decided and you're clear about what do you want, this next piece I think is probably the more important piece, is why do you want that? It's really easy to be like, hey, I want to become vice president, and I don't know why I keep stuck on vice president. Anybody want to be vice president? Just in case. What else do you want to be? So I don't keep using this. I don't want to be a vice president. I want to be the CEO. What else? What do you want to be? So next step is what for some people? I'm just curious. What's the next step for you in your career? C-suite. What's the next step for you in your career? Leader of people. What's the next step for you in your career? I'm looking directly at you with the turquoise. I'm also that person. I will point you out, because I assume if you're in this room, you want to participate. Remember, I gave you an opportunity to leave and you didn't go. So, leading a project. So people want to be project leaders, leader of people. I want to get to the C-suite. Understanding what's the facts about that role. How much do you know about the thing that you actually are going to? And the reason why this is important is because many people want titles and positions, but they don't understand the facts of that job. What does that job actually do? And because this might change your perspective once you understand that. Feelings, how do you want to feel? So once you become a leader of people, how do you expect to feel in that spot? There is no worse feeling than working really, really hard to get something, and then you get it and you're like, I don't want this. I actually don't want this at all, but now because I asked for it, and I had this experience early on in my career. I've been working since I was 14, but my first job is where I learned this idea of feeling. I fought, because again, I've always been women power, and we can make a difference in the world, and it was me and a guy, and we were working at a daycare center. Never forget this, and I'm giving it to you so you're not this person. But he got to answer the phones, and she put me to play with the kids. And at 14, I was like, absolutely not, because I am a woman does not mean that I should, 14, right? This was my mindset at that time. And I was offended that I had to play with the kids and he got to answer the phone. So I complained about it for a week to all the people around me. And guess what happened? So it got back to the principal of the daycare, and she says, Alex, I've decided this week we're going to give you the phones, and we're going to put JP, and I'm using real names, we're going to put JP with the kids. And I was like, yes, women rule, and we've conquered again. And I was all satisfied until she set me in that room, and an hour into it, I realized nobody calls a daycare. The phone does not ring unless they got the wrong number or they're coming to pick their kid up early. That doesn't happen. I was miserable. And I couldn't say anything. You know why I couldn't say anything? Because I had lobbied and fought for this position that I didn't understand the facts about. Because had I just talked to JP, he'd have told me that the phone didn't ring. He could have informed me that only people with the wrong number call there. But I sat there for a week and then had to humbly go back to her and go, I really like the children. Don't be me. Don't be me. Let that be your story, is that you understand what the facts are and the understanding of what does it mean to lead people at your organization? What does it mean to lead a project? What does the C-suite entail for your organization? What will you focus on in that role so that you ensure that it aligns back to, again, what you want, which is beforehand. Without that understanding why you're doing it and what you're going after, you might accidentally miss the very thing that you think you're going because you're chasing titles. I tell people all the time, chase skills, not titles. Skills are transferable, titles are not. And you want to ensure that you're developing skills.